Tonight, we come together to focus on two incredibly important themes: aging well and creating a legacy. These are not just topics of conversation, but guiding principles that inspire the work that GLCF does every day. This event celebrates those who have chosen to leave their mark on the future through philanthropy and service. Their generosity is not just a gift to the present, but an investment into future generations. GLCF's work would not be possible without the generosity of our partners in philanthropy. And as you can see on the left-hand side here on the screen, we've listed all of our sponsors for tonight's event and for during the year as well. And in particular, I'd like to recognize our premier partner, our platinum partners, and our gold partners. Premier partner is Enterprise Bank. Our platinum partners are Easton Bank, Easton Salt Company, Nancy L. Donahue. And our gold partners are Lowell Sun Charities, Net Scout Systems, Pride Star Trinity EMS, and the Tebow Foundation. So once again, thank you all for being here and for your commitment to this community and for inspiring us to think about the legacies we can create together. I also want to acknowledge and thank the GLCF Board of Directors, many of whom are here tonight, as well as the GLCF each and every day in improving the quality of life for those of us in the Greater Lowell area. It's now my honor to welcome Jay Linnehan, the President and CEO of Greater Lowell Community Foundation. Jay.
Chet, you're a little taller than I am. And thank you for that introduction. And likewise, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. One of the conversations I've been having before I got up here tonight was so many different things that are occurring in this city tonight. And so many different things that have been occurring through this entire season. So I seriously really want to thank you for choosing to join us tonight, because you had options tonight, but you came here. And I greatly appreciate you being here with us tonight to gather with our Celebrate Giving event and to discuss aging well and creating a legacy. I want to recognize a couple of public officials. I know that Mayor Dan Work was here earlier tonight. He had to leave to another function. I know we've got Representative Rodney Elliott in the crowd. He may have had to leave to go to another function. And we expect some others to come and go throughout the course of the evening. But I too want to thank the GLCF staff. So many of you folks out in the room know what it takes to put together an event, and it's not an easy task. So could I ask the GLCF folks to please stand up for a moment? Just please stand up, because I want you all to be recognized. The only reason I look good, if I do look good, is because of them. And I also want to thank UTEC. I talked to Greg Couteau earlier today. He was unable to make it, different commitment. But I want to thank the UTEC staff. We've been coming here for the last number of years for this particular event, and they do a bang-up job every single year, so I want to give a shout-out for the UTEC. So, aging well and creating a legacy. Well, you can't age well unless you live well. Now, I'm guessing that there's a whole bunch of people in this room right now that can say, yeah, I get that. I've experienced that. You know, am I living well? Am I aging well? Because aging well isn't just about longevity. It's about living with purpose. It's about living with vitality. It's about connection to our community. It's about being present and grateful for what you have and appreciating just the simple things in life. It's about having a sense of community, a feeling like you belong to something that's much greater than you yourself. It's about feeling loved, having respect for relationships with others, creating a legacy about planting seeds today that will have a long-lasting impact. At the foundation, we believe aging well involves contributing meaningfully to the lives of others and leaving behind a legacy of impact, a life well lived. I want you all to think about your legacy and how to contribute to this community in a way that ensures future generations to thrive. If you need some inspiration on that, I want to point to your program, and in your program there's a QR code. Take your phone out and click on that QR code, because within that QR code you are going to read some amazing stories of some people that have really stepped up to create a legacy for their life. Amazing stories of giving. And with that said, I think everybody in this room tonight subscribes to this philosophy. I think everybody here gets it. And there are many in this particular room who have already established funds at the Greater Lowell Community Foundation and who have added funds to other funds that we have at the Greater Lowell Community Foundation. And if you would bear with me and just oblige me just a minute, for all the folks that have done that, do me a favor, raise your hand. That's amazing. That is amazing. And that is how our community does what our community does. So now it is my pleasure to present the 2024 Celebrate Giving Awards and Grants. First up is the 2024 Business Philanthropy Partner Award. It is a pleasure to award the 2024 Business Philanthropy Award to Red Hat. In the 4 years since they have established their technology and scholarships funds, they have awarded more than $250,000 in grants and scholarships throughout the Greater Lowell Community Foundation service area. They have been exceptional partners in responding to the needs in our community and supporting organizations that help address those needs. We are pleased to be able to recognize their great work. I invite John Flanagan, Senior Director for Red Hat's Westford Corporate Citizenship Program, to join me to accept this award. John? Thank you, John. Our second award tonight is the Bankers Volunteer Award for Lifetime Achievement. The 2024 Bankers Volunteer Award for Lifetime Achievement is intended for someone who is making a positive change in our community. The foundation honors an individual volunteer for their exemplary efforts of improving the quality of life in Greater Lowell. Jack Moynihan was selected as the 2024 recipient of this award from a group of wonderful and deserving folks being nominated. For years, Jack has been serving the Lowell community in a variety of different capacities as a board member for the Merrimack Valley, for the Merrimack Repertory Theater, the Whistler House, for the Lowell Canal Water Cleaners, Mill City Grows, and Lowell Development and Neighborhood Association. On top of all of that, he volunteers for other groups, including Lowell Parks and Recreation Conservation Trust, Lowell National Park, DIY Lowell, and the Litter Crew. Jack, where on earth do you find all the energy to do all of that? In recognizing Jack, we are not only celebrating his extraordinary commitment, we are also highlighting the power of volunteerism. Jack, would you please join me up here at the podium?
Thank you very much. I'll keep with the brevity theme here, but thanks to the people from the foundation, Jay and the rest of the staff, and Jeff, and all the board for the wonderful things you're doing. And thanks to all of you for supporting the foundation and for supporting the organizations that benefit from it. So thank you. And this check is, I'm going to present a $1,000 check. I'm not used to doing this, but to the Lowell Humane Society.
Thank you, Jack. Our third award this evening is the 2024 Stephen Jonkis Community Connector Award. And the individual that this is named after is with us tonight. So thank you, Steve, for being with us tonight. The Steve Jonkis Community Connector Award recognizes an individual or organization in our community that performs exemplary deeds of service for the community in the Greater Lowell area. Ms. Sophia Tiam was selected as the 2024 recipient from a group of wonderful and deserving nominations. In addition to being the lead producer for the Southeast Asian Water Festival that annually draws thousands of visitors to the city of Lowell, she is the co-producer of the award-winning Lost Child, Sejong's Journey, and other films about Cambodia. I invite Sophia to the film to come up and accept this award, please.
I've never held a $1,000 check before. Thank you. I am putting this towards a new community initiative called for Linnehan, a 50-year journey of remembrance and resilience. Next April is the 50th year of the end of the Vietnam War and the beginning of the Church's Khmer Rouge regime that led many of us here to the wonderful home of Lowell. And this is going to the efforts to have a exhibit and celebration to honor the victims and also the resilience of the survivors here. Thank you.
Now we're going to award a couple grants. And the first grant we're going to do is the Newell Flather Legacy Fund Grant. And I'd like to ask Sophie Diem and Maria Kuna to come up here, please, as representatives of the Parker Foundation. They said they would only come up and stand here if I made sure that they didn't have to say anything. So I will honor that request unless they change their mind. But the Newell Flather Legacy Fund was established by the Theodore Edson Parker Foundation back in 2023 at the Greater Lowell Community Foundation to support nonprofit projects focused on arts, immigrant and refugee communities, and/or advancing equity and inclusion in the city of Lowell. This grant award was established in honor and to honor the legacy of Newell Flather, a Lowell native and a renowned philanthropist. This year, grant award goes to University of Massachusetts at Lowell, Bridges to Success, Empowering Racial Equity Among Men of Color at UMass Lowell. This grant will provide funding to support Lowell's unrepresented minority males in their academic success, holistic development, and empowerment. This initiative advances racial equity through college persistence and completion. I invite Leslie Wong from UMass Lowell, Dean of Equity and Inclusion, to join me here to accept this award. I'd asked Emily if she wanted to come up. Emily Byrne also, she said, no, I'm not going to come up, but she just did. So I also want to recognize Emily Byrne that came up here tonight. So we've got a couple key players at the university that are here with us tonight. And I have to say that the university and the foundation have many partnerships, and this is one of them. It's a real pleasure to award this grant tonight.
so much. Emily and I are profoundly grateful and honored to accept the 2024 GLCF Newell Flather Legacy Fund grant on behalf of UMass Lowell. This moment truly captures the power of partnership and shared vision, and I extend our heartfelt thanks to not only the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, but especially to Jay Linnehan and Jennifer Aradia for their steadfast support and advocacy, and as well as to the Theodore Edson Parker Foundation for creating this fund and for their support and their belief in UMass Lowell's initiatives. We accept this grant with both pride and a profound sense of responsibility as we steward our initiative, Bridges to Success. Bridges to Success is more than just a project. It's a lifeline to many of our most vulnerable students who are grappling with systemic inequities and financial hardship in the post-pandemic era. We are committed to creating a nurturing environment where our students can thrive and excel and academically develop personally and emerge as leaders within their community. In receiving this grant, it not only honors the legacy of Newell Flather, but also energizes our commitment to making lasting changes in our academic community, in the city of Lowell, and in the Commonwealth. On behalf of UMass Lowell, myself, Emily Byrne, we thank you once again for this honor and for your continued partnerships, and we extend our congratulations to all the winners tonight. Thank you.
Our next grant award this evening is a Celebrate Giving grant that we put in place for this particular evening. This new grant was established to provide funding to an organization who had applied to GLCF on a previous grant cycle, but that grant was not funded. And then tonight, as we were doing Celebrate Giving with the theme that we have tonight, we thought it would be totally appropriate to give a grant that recognizes the theme that we are here celebrating tonight. And so this grant tonight goes to the Friends of Lowell Council on Aging Center, Programs for Creativity of Older Adults. And I do think it's consistent with our theme this evening. I invite Maxine Farkas to join me tonight to accept the Celebrate Giving Award. Maxine?
This means I'm in the 21st century. I'm going to read this off of my phone. I'm the lead volunteer for the arts program at the Lowell Senior Center, which is all Aurora Falls. Those of you who know Aurora know that she can really get it. The Senior Center art program really began a year and a half ago when Aurora said to me, we brought all these artists to Lowell, how do we get them to come to the Senior Center? Because they're aging now and we have ways to support them. And I said, well, I grew up watching musicals with Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland, throwing a musical anytime they wanted to raise money. You know, you want money, you put on a show. So I said, let's have an art show. On November 1st, we are installing our 6th art show at the Lowell Senior Center. We have shown work by more than 60 artists. We have shown close to 300 pieces of art that they have made at these shows. These are people, many of whom are not professional artists, but who fell in love with the arts when they were in high school or in college, and they did it, and then they had to stop because they needed to get a job and support themselves. And now that they're retired, they want to get back to doing that. And so we're showing work that's never been shown before. We've also taken what used to be kind of a, well, like, you know, maybe 2 hours a month, we'll have an art program. We are now offering 15 hours a week in arts programming at the Senior Center. And it is because of CASE. They gave us an ARPA grant to replace equipment. It's because of the Lowell Cultural Council, who gave us a grant to have classes. It's because of Mass Cultural Council that funded the first year of art shows. And now with this grant, this is going to carry the program well into next year. And it's going to supply people who don't otherwise have opportunity. They've had to downsize. They don't have studio space. They had to downsize. They had to give stuff up. We supply art programming for free. All materials are free. So anyone who wants to make art can. And I thank you so much for this, because this is awesome. This is
This is awesome. So, you know, I talk to people lots of times doing the work that I do, and they say, isn't raising money hard? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, any job that you take seriously, that's, you know, serious implications is hard. But it's fun, and this is why it's fun. So give one. So now we're going to transition to another part of our program. And this is the part of the program that I've very much been looking forward to. Because the guest speaker we have here this evening, Catherine Esty, has been a lady that I've been fortunate enough to sit down and chat with for a couple times. And I've been absolutely just amazed at the things that she does. I'm hopeful that everybody pull this out. Got their book. Did everybody get one of these tonight? If you didn't, check on the way out. And so it is now my pleasure to introduce Catherine. And in your program, you will see her bio, but let me just deal with it a little bit. Catherine is PhD, social psychologist and psychotherapist, and an activist for aging well. And she didn't try the psychotherapy or psychotherapy, any of that when I met with her, so thank you so much for that. God knows what you would have found. But for more than 20 years, she's been a managing partner for IBIS Consulting Group, a strategic planning and diversity firm. Her clients were Fortune 500 companies, universities, UN agencies. She's also had a connection with Jericho Road, which is something that's a partner with the Greater Lowell Community Foundation. And she worked on the strategic plan for Community Teamwork Inc. way back in the day. As a therapist for 30 years, she has counseled hundreds of clients, helping them deal effectively with change in their lives. Her latest book, 80-somethings, a practical guide to letting go, aging well, and finding unexpected happiness, which, again, you have a copy with, is you have here tonight. So it was with great pleasure that I'm going to welcome Catherine up here, and we're going to transition over to the space right over here. So bear with us just a minute as we do that. So tell us all a little bit. I mean, you've got a really interesting career, and I talked a little bit about some of the things you did. And again, in the program, there's a little bit about your bio. What we just talked about is a snippet of some of the things that you've done. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path.
Well, I think what makes my story a little different than many, I was kind of a late bloomer. My kids said, kind of kid me and say I kind of peaked at 85. But I think what made my story different is I did reinvent myself over and over again. I was always a change agent, but I somehow had the courage or whatever it was, stupidity, to keep on saying I can change and do a different thing. So I was a stay-at-home mom I was very briefly a teacher. Then I went to social work school as a social worker, a psychotherapist. I worked for 10 years in Fitchburg, your kind of neighboring town, and was in the community mental health center when community mental health was flourishing. It was a fabulous time, but there was lots to do, and that was fabulous. And then I went back and got my PhD at age 50, which seemed very old to people. Like now people are saying, you did that at 50? Well, yeah, I did. And then I made a complete change of going to work in consulting, and I worked for a firm, and then I founded my own firm with a couple of other women. But that took me to my favorite part was going to different developing countries and working, doing strategic planning with them on kind of big issues. Oops, not a disaster. So that was, I think, what makes it interesting. And I had decided, I was asked once how old I'd be when I retired. And my husband and I were seeing a financial planner. My husband said 65, I was now about 30, and I said 85. So I think, and I actually retired from my private practice psychotherapy at 87. So, but it was not a demanding job at that. I mean, it was a part-time job. So anyway, so that kind of gives you the breezy, a big picture of what I went through. But should we?
So you referenced earlier the number of different people that you interviewed. And as you noted in your book, it was 128 different people around the country that you went and chatted with. And as I've been going through the book, it was interesting, a variety of the folks that you talked to, and there was a huge spectrum of different people. And I can only imagine the different stories that you encountered when you did that. So tell us a little bit about the 128 people and what you learned from them that you didn't already know.
Yeah, okay, great. What I learned was, of course, they were, these were mostly all, they'll be like all but about 6 or 7 are people I didn't know. And what I learned, and I wanted to do all kinds of people that were, and what I found out, that was the real shocker, the thing that I think most of you wouldn't know if you kind of imagine interviewing 128 people in their 80s. My sample group was all in their 80s. I was very rigid on that because I wanted to write the book and not have it 70 or 90 or anything else. Was that the people that I interviewed I asked each one of them how happy they were on a scale of 1 to 10. Almost, there were probably 6 or 7 that weren't either an 8 or a 9 or a 10. And I didn't avoid, I didn't pick only people that were already thriving. I picked lots of people that, randomly that people would give me a connection and I would have no idea. And I think what I found out too, I started at that point when I was deciding to do a book, that I would do some research in the library kind of thing, on the internet. And I found out that if you do some research, you'll find out that this is really well known now, that happiness is, people do get happier. There's a kind of a happiness curve. And the amazing thing is that I can say to you, I don't think there's anybody in 80 of the group here, but anyway, that all of you, if you're 60 or over, you will be happier in the next decade. On the average, almost everybody is. And so that it turns out 50 is the hardest. And you probably all know that because you're doing so many things at once. The sandwich generation, you've got kids, you've got parents still, you're taking care of them, you've got jobs. But people in their 60s are happier than being in the 50s. People in their 70s are happier than the people in the 60s. And people in their 80s are happier than people in the 70s. So it's a very positive scene. Now, you also know that everyone isn't tip-top, and by the time they're like 70s or 80s, there are people everybody has losses, and a lot of people would, I think when you're young, you see somebody that is in a wheelchair or on a walker or with a cane, and maybe can't hear very well, and you'd say, I've heard people say, you have probably too, I'd shoot myself if that was me that had to do that. But, so I'm a good example of, today, if you got close to me, you'd see I have 2 black eyes, that I fell, I fell.
Yeah, I did not do that.
People said, I should say, well, you should see the other guy. So anyway, I did trip on and fall and land on a table, and so those kinds of things happen. So the happiness of people in their 80s isn't because they haven't had failures, sicknesses, losses, and I think people do not know that. They think if you had as many losses as people in their 70s and 80s, or losing a spouse. I lost a spouse, and then also, I had a relationship afterwards, and lost him too. I think that is a very important understanding that happiness doesn't depend on not having had these bad experiences. But what is it? It's really called the paradox of aging, which is almost the fact that people have had these losses, people begin to understand and treasure what life is all about. You probably have heard this, you may know this, but if you need to know it in your bones, because I think even when I talk about not dreading aging, people can mouth those words, but to really believe it is something different, that you can look forward to being older and that it's going to be a good experience, I think.
So not only did she bounce back from falling down, last month she did COVID. And so here she is today. I mean, it's amazing. It is totally amazing. So talk about COVID. There's always, everything's a construct of pre and post COVID. I mean, we all talk about that. What about this? What about that? So from your perspective and in the work that you did, how did the pandemic change views on aging?
Well, it certainly, I think, it revolutionized. I mean, there's just a major difference. Like, I live in a retirement community, and we were actually in a lockdown for like 12 weeks, which was a severe lockdown. And there are a lot of people that are couples, but there are a lot of people that are single, and we were in rooms by ourselves. You weren't to leave, you couldn't go out in the corridors even. And the dinners and food was placed in a paper bag outside your door, and then the people would run away, so they wouldn't catch anything from us. For me, it's kind of a funny story. I had a boyfriend at this time, and he lived on the 6th floor, I lived on the 1st floor. But when they were locking us up, they said, well, you have 2 hours, and you two could either be together, or if we didn't live together at that point, or if you live and go to your own apartments and stay there, you won't be able to see each other at all, because nobody's going out. So we decided in half an hour that we would live together. That was the best decision I made, because it took us. That decision was easy, but then which apartment we'd go to took an hour, and I finally won because I was writing the book by then, and I have a big computer, and we couldn't carry it, and he worked on his phone, and so anyway, I won. But it meant that I had company during the pandemic, but many people didn't, and I think we learned that our dying results at the nursing home part of our place, people were, were at the end of life and were dying, and they were not allowed to see their families. And that stage, I think that the medical community has learned, we've all learned, that human connection is just so important, that we're not people that you can disconnect from. We were social beings, we need each other. And so now I think nobody will ever go back to having a lockdown so completely. So we've learned, we're just beginning to learn. We've got statistics now. You may have heard all these, that if being socially isolated is worse than smoking 15 cigarettes a day, and the risk of dying goes way up. So anyway, we know that's what we're all changed by that, and I think for the better. We now know the value of social connections, and I think people are beginning to see that relationships are what matter most. And I think we may have underestimated that before as a country and as healthcare professionals and whatever else.
So, particularly interested in the answer to this next question, because the question is, what makes for a good life after 70 years old?
Okay, I think that most of you have ideas on this, and probably they're good ones. And I think we all know that we have to have a common sense approach on food, exercise, drugs, activity. We gotta, and we know all that. But what we don't know, although you mentioned it earlier tonight, but I think most people are not aware of how important it is to think about having a purpose. Because after 70, most people aren't working. And many of us, our work has been our purpose. And and for women, they've had a job and they have children. And if the children are gone, the job is gone, and here you are 70, nowadays with modern health, you're gonna have up to 10, 20, 30, 40 years of being healthy and pain-free. And, it sounds great, but then there's only so much vacation leisure you can have, and it wears thin. And then people, I think, struggle. And I think that some of the answer is people have to develop a new purpose. And I was lucky to get the purpose of writing the book, and I'm now writing a column for my newspaper in Concord, and other people do all kinds of things. But I think that the idea that you can just have leisure time for the rest of your life and that you'll enjoy it, it's just not true. I had somebody, actually I was talking to today, and she had just moved into the retirement community, and she was now settled. But then she said, well, now what? And I think that's a question that everyone has to answer.
So purpose is certainly something I think that's important to all of us. With a purpose, you need to have an attitude. And so does attitude drive purpose, and does purpose drive attitude? And can you really just choose your attitude?
Okay, well, let's start with the purpose just a little bit more. I think the questions on purpose would be the way I think people can find their purpose is to find out what you really like doing the most. And that, what you're passionate about, and it may surprise you. And I always say a couple of questions like, when have you felt like you're being your real self? And sometimes we realize that, we go through a lot of things that we do, and we can do them okay. But then every now and then we have an experience where it's really wonderful. So that, I think, is the way you get to your purpose, kind of looking at what you enjoy the most, but also then looking at it here. You live in a city or cities around where there's all kinds of needs. And I think that deep down, all of us want to contribute in some way. And so you don't want to stop. And that idea that you can sit and have a vacation for the rest of your life and be considered just on, you're not going to be doing work or significant things, that is not a good way to be. So I learned that once. We went to a kibbutz, my husband and I did, as tourists and visiting some in Israel. And I saw there that the kibbutz, no matter how old you were, they always gave work to people. And that is just so wise, because they said the 90-year-old people would maybe only work 4 hours a week, but everybody had to contribute. And I think our society is kind of off because we don't really build that into retirement. So that the retirement's got to be redesigned and with a little more. So then we get from what we were talking about, attitude, and that's a really, the question is, can you, I've always maintained this, but a lot of people argue with me. They say that you can choose your attitude. And especially you can choose your attitude about aging. That one person did his research a long time and found out if you have a very good attitude about aging, you're going to live 7 years longer than people that are going around saying, oh, aging is not for sissies, it's terrible, I hate aging. And that is not good for your health. And I think, so I do believe that you can choose your attitude, and that we have a lot more choice, and that this is And now all of us are under enormous pressure right at the moment, I think, just from the national scene. But we can, and everybody's here, I think, is facing how do you manage this right now? It's terrible for all of us. But I think you can either get completely down and just get so you can't function, or you can learn how to manage it. And I do think you can choose to, one of the things I think about now is that you can be anxious over here, but just kind of put it away for a while and say, I'm gonna put that away for an hour and just go back and not think about it. So anyway, you probably all have techniques and tricks for how to do that, but we've all had to develop them because it's certainly, I think, an unparalleled time of national anxiety. I don't know, I've never known anything. I've lived in here 90 years, and this seems like maybe the worst in terms of just concern for the country.
So, in our communities, there's oftentimes, well, all the time to some degree, where different people get treated different ways. And we see that all the time for lots of different reasons. And we likewise see that for older folks. How they get treated, whether they get treated well, whether they don't get treated well. In the research you've done and the interviews you've done, what have you come across of certain things that you were disturbed about? And what are some of the things that you'd like to see our community change about people getting older? How to respond differently, how to treat people differently?
Yeah, I think that most of you probably, we said, do you believe this is an ageist community, wherever you live? People would say, well, and a lot of people would say no. Some people might say yes. I think that I see now that I'm kind of tuned into thinking about what it's like to be older, that I realize that everything we need in our country was, evolved way before there were many old people. It's kind of interesting that at the time of Jefferson and the founding fathers, the average life expectancy was 37. So when they were creating institutions, they weren't thinking we're going to live so long. And now, every year we live, and I've just noticed it in my own lifetime. I went to my father's 50th reunion at college. He was born in 1906. And his class looked pretty old. They were like mostly on canes and walkers, and compared to my 50th reunion, which was only like, I'm only 28 years younger, but those 30 years there, my classmates looked pretty good. And I think right now modern medicine has changed the world, that people aren't looking to having all these years of pain-free, active life where we're going to go along, and then it doesn't last forever. But everything was designed, houses, towns, jobs, the way we structure things for people that are not having any older people around. So our house, I noticed particularly that this is a big step for me right here. And I look at front doors and where there's so many places where there's steps without any railing, and people can't do it. So we need to redesign our towns, when you look at, even in my retirement community, they have chairs that are absurd. That half the chairs people can't sit on them. So, there's so much to do if we were to create a world that really looked at the needs of older people. So I hope that some of you will take that on too, to how to change it. I don't know if there's age-friendly processes that sometimes some cities and towns go through it to look at and find out what are the issues. And transportation is one. When many people can't drive, and how do you really want good transportation to get people around? So I think I do see a lot of ageism, and we've all been talking about, I've been writing too about what is too old. And I did say in my last column that I wrote that I said, I have decided that I am too old to be president of the United States. And I said, don't laugh. So, but I do think that we do need some changes there too.
So you mentioned too old to be president of the United States. I'm going to ask you another question, a political question, but with a small p. And how do you see men and women, and how do they age differently?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's one of the, you think it's the same, but it isn't. There are a couple of big differences.
No, we age much better, right?
Well, the men do age better, they understand, men understand. I interviewed a lot of men, and they all began to see that, well, relationships are the most important thing. And I think I wish I'd spent a little more time with my kids, but I was able to. And I think that, so they all come to understand some things they didn't. What it makes it easier for women, I think, as we age, is that women, on the whole, have lots of friends, and they so have all kinds of, go through life with having friends. Men, especially if they lose their spouse, it's really difficult. So I think men need help to value friendship earlier. And I think, you don't want to wait till you're 70 or 80. But another way they change is men and women both go and start doing things they haven't done. Men learn how to cook, and women learn how to change a tire and go into finance. And so it's a chance. Older age is like a second chance to do all the things you didn't do. And it's funny how many men are there. So in my retirement community, it's the women aren't cooking and having, but a couple of men have dinner parties, and they're the ones that get out the silver and cook these lovely meals for us and went to cooking classes. So it's fun. But it really is a chance to redo and to explore what you haven't explored, and that both sides can do. But the women get to do the gender things that they missed, because we have gender tasks, kind of like changing tires was mostly for men to do, kind of thing. Okay.
My wife still doesn't let me cook, which is quite all right. On the grill, I'm good with a beer, but other than that, no, I'm not allowed in the kitchen. So earlier tonight, many of my comments start with legacy, and how do you create a legacy? I think legacies is the definition of which you can get lots of different answers to that. But I'm really curious, how do you define legacy in the construct of all the research you've done and the book you've written? What does legacy mean to you?
Well, it doesn't, a narrow definition, which it doesn't mean to me, is just, writing a will and giving some money and maybe some property. And
I like people to do that.
Yeah, I found out that I did a little research, and I found out, according to my quick resources, that only 55% of people have wills. So I think, obviously, it's a good, I agree with you, we should all have wills. I have a will. But then my son, a few months ago, asked me, well, do you have a special cause that you're interested in? Something he was sort of hinting at, were I to die, would I have, what could they would put in this program like in the, and I couldn't think of anything. I realized, well, what does that show about me that I hadn't thought of it? So now I've thought of it and figured out what I'm doing, so that's good. But I had to think it through, and I think we all wait too long, because I think we're not a country or people that want to talk about the end of life. And I think we all wait too long. So that's one of my definitions. Well, my definition of a legacy is what you pass on, want to pass on to the generations after you, when you're not there any longer. And it's what you care about. So even you want it to happen even if you're not there. I mean, you want to plant trees, or you want to build schools, or whatever. And so I think a legacy, but I think that in my work with aging, I think what older people don't know is that how interested younger people are in what they've learned, what the wisdom is. And so grandparents often don't tell their grandkids, and that's what they begin to, they start writing memoirs. But I think your legacy is your whole life story, what you believe in, what you care about, and that one of the things it's really important to do is to tell the people around you what you care about and who you are and what means something to you. I mean, think about it. As a family therapist, I used to ask people about their grandparents. A lot of people didn't know their grandparents' full names, their 4 grandparents. Certainly didn't know their great-grandparents' names. And think about it, if you had one page or a paragraph written by each of your great-grandparents telling you what they thought was most important and what they valued and what mattered most to them, how thrilling that would be. So we can be the generation that starts writing for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren I've written a memoir, which I gave to my grandkids, but I now am realizing my grandkids are quite old, like 17 to 34. But I'm now having conversations with them, they're old enough, they're young adults, and to explain what I think. And I do think that's the legacy, to share. But if I'm starting to have one-to-one conversations, or having lunch, or inviting one to come for, and I think that we need to share with the young people, and it doesn't have to be your own kids. It can be the young people in your generation, wherever you meet them, that we make it's a big disservice not to take the time to talk about, instead of always talking about what they're doing, where they're going, but to really share our stories and what has meant something. It's, I think, a great legacy to leave for people around you. I think it's underdone, so that's my definition.
I think that's an amazing definition. I did not know my great-parents. They were not alive when I was born. So
Wow.
I have no history with
And
that
if you had-
whatsoever, on both my mom's side and my dad's side.
And if you had letters, how different that would be. In the book, I do this thing, I could talk about legacy letters, or writing a letter, if you which is, and they're just short, they can be a paragraph or something. So they're at the very end of the book about how you might go about this, because it can be too overwhelming to write a memoir, that's a big project, but writing a paragraph, yeah.
So what do you still think that we get wrong about aging?
Well, I think we get it wrong that we don't know we don't really believe we're gonna be happier. I think we get wrong I think we get wrong that we think aging is you kind of grow like this, get wiser, and then it goes like this, and then we kind of think the second half of life is all decline, and I think that's absolutely wrong. So I think my model is we do lose skills. Your ballet, you can't become a ballet dancer overnight. But I do think I am wiser, and I think we can grow and develop, and I think we've missed the boat on that as a society, that the second half of life can be, we can all learn things. The stereotypes still are crazy about old people, like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And a lot of people believe that, and even, and then you can feel it when but it's about technology. You can think maybe it is a little hard for the old dogs to learn some of the tricks, but we can learn it, and that's the important thing. So I think we do have to change our model about aging, and that's a big ask. But I think, I guess I'm hoping that what you've gotten out of tonight is to really re-explore your kind of image in your own mind of that second half of life, and especially the aging, and been open to seeing that in spite of the kinds of health problems or having bad knees, but you can get new knees, and you can get new shoulders, and you can get new earphones and hearing aids, and that you can grow and develop and create, and I hope people can take away that there is really good news.
Well, takeaway actually leads me right into our final question, which is, what are the takeaways that you hope people will take away from our conversation here tonight?
Well, I think it just the fact of all the good news that there really is, and the fact that I do think legacies are important, and that we share with everybody we know who we are, to share our values, because I think sometimes we think actions speak louder than words, but I think words speak louder too. So in some ways we have to tell the people we love what we really care about. So that's what I think is important. And I think, but it's really the whole idea of re-envisioning, having a new vision of what you can be, and that it isn't decline, that we can all kind of have love and joy and development and growth up to the very last days of our life. And that is really, that's, I think, the good news about aging, and I hope you've taken some of that.
Well, thank you so much. One of the things I'd just like the audience to know is that we always give speakers an honorarium. And the honorarium that we offered to Catherine, to donate it back to the Greater Lowell Community Foundation for the Immigrant and Refugee Resettlement Program. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for the opportunity to share so much of your thinking, some of your wisdom with us all tonight. I mean, we've handed out that book tonight. Trust me, you gotta go through that book because there's way more in that than you heard this evening. But some of what you did here is expounded upon a lot in that particular book. So again, thank you for that. We appreciate that. We thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Well, I'm